Okay, shalom, everyone. Chodesh Tov, and welcome back. Wow, it's now Rosh Chodesh Adar, 2 weeks until Purim, and we anticipate and hope that we have a collective salvation from all the crazy anti-Semitism and hate in the world, and the collective difficult situation of Jews being estranged from the Torah, and unfortunately the Jews who are against the Torah, that we should have a major salvation, that everyone should recognize that Hashem is the Lord, and the Torah is the truth, and Moshe Rabbeinu and all the true tzaddikim are the truth, B'ezrat Hashem. That's the goal, to have that revelation made in the world, that people will come and recognize this. And we should have a part in building up that recognition in the world, B'ezrat Hashem. And personally, that we have our own personal salvation, each one according to what they need. If it's a physical salvation, if it's a spiritual salvation, emotional, financial, health, whatever it is, medical salvation, we should all have our breakthroughs, B'ezrat Hashem, through the miracle of Purim. And the main thing again is Simcha. One amazing insight on Purim that can be connected to Likutey Moharan lesson 3 is that in the Megillah, Esther tells Mordechai that the Jews should fast 3 days. The first day is the eve of Pesach, day before Pesach. The second day, the first day of Pesach. And the third day is the second day of Pesach itself, which is when Esther made the feast and invited Achashverosh and Haman. And she told Mordechai, Vitsumu alai, that the Jews, everybody, men, women, children, should fast for 3 days. No food and no drink. You would wonder, how could people survive 3 days with no food and no drink? However, when a person is really under pressure, anything is possible. We see Jews who in the Holocaust, they went without food and drink for 3 days and they survived. It's not like something which is far-fetched, but here on a national level, it's just that everybody should fast. And what days? Days when you should not fast. Happy days. Erev Pesach is a happy day. Okay? It's true you're supposed to limit how much you eat. You're allowed to eat though. Okay? The first day of Pesach, it's a mitzvah to eat. No fasting. No Leil Seder Doraita. It's like an obligation from the Torah to eat matzah, to have the Seder. It's an obligation. And then the second day, which in the diaspora is also Yom Tov, in the case of Esther and Mordechai, the Jews were in the diaspora, it was Yom Tov, and yet to fast. Okay? There's no greater pushback than this. That you have to do A, but you're being forced to do B. And the B is not comfortable, but you have no choice because the danger of the situation is forcing you that you have to do B. But ideally, we should be doing A. This is associated with what Rabbi Nachman says in this amazing lesson, Likutey Moharan 24, that in order to experience the infinite light, which was the goal of Purim, the goal of Purim miracle was to get the Jews to experience Orah v'Simcha, light and joy. That was the whole goal of Purim. Purim wasn't okay, it was just a national holiday and an event. It changed everything. It allowed Jews now throughout to be able to connect to the Torah out of love. Through the miracle of Purim, we have a chance to connect to God, to Hashem at the highest levels. Don't forget, Purim and Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is like Purim. Yom Kippurim, like Purim. Because there's nothing greater than connecting to Hashem out of love, out of ahava. There's out of fear, which is understood. You have to punish a child, you have to educate. That's initial stage. But the goal is to come to tshuva out of love. Coming back to Hashem out of ahava, which is the miracle of Purim, which can be experienced in this difficult and miserable galut that people are going through on a personal level and on a national level. We can still connect with love and clarity. And that's the goal of the Purim miracle. So, going back, she said to fast 3 days. Each day of the 3 is, in a way, a multiplication of the 3 itself. So it's 3 times 3, which is 9. Why do we say that? Because a person's day is associated with his 3 faculties of the mind, his chokhmah, his bina, and dat. The person goes around guiding his day, living his day, doing his errands and everything in the day, and utilizing the 3 faculties of the mind. Because ultimately what you're doing in the day requires brain input. If it's the chokhmah of the brain, the bina of the brain, or the dat of the brain. So each day has in itself 3 days to fast, which would mean stopping the nourishment of the food, so that now the brain has to deal with itself, to function and build self-nourishment to survive. That's the idea of the brain becoming integrated with itself in order to function. And it's 3 times 3, that's 9. So the 3 days that Esther told Mordechai that everyone has to fast was in order to build up 9 chambers, which Rebbe Nachman talks about in lesson 24, which are 9 vessels to receive within them the light of the miracle of Purim, which is the infinite light itself. Ora v'simcha. Le'udim haita ora v'simcha. The Jews reached the level through the fasting, basically, to come to light and joy. Okay? They're crying out, which we do today on a different date. We do on the 13th of Adar, which is the fast of Esther. We utilize that date to reactivate the Jews fasting in order to activate the Purim miracle. Because there was the fasting to commemorate the battle that the Jews fought against their enemies, but it's also to commemorate the fasting that the Jews did in order to activate and initiate the Purim miracle. We today do that in one day, the fast of Esther. We can't expect everyone to fast 3 days, but to utilize the fast of Esther to express what's in our heart, to get the mind also functioning within itself, and in that way to prepare for us the miracle of Purim today. So this is an amazing point of the 3 days of fasting as it relates to this lesson 24. With that said, we want to continue now with Likutey Moharan, lesson 24, the last paragraph, which in most editions is called paragraph number 10. This is the last paragraph. This is the summary of the lesson. How Rabbi Nachman works in Likutey Moharan is that he begins to present his perceptions, his ideas, and he connects one to each other, building a whole lesson, normally working backwards. The goal, to get to this, you need to do this. But to get to this, you need to do this, and it's going backwards. In other words, how do I get to this final goal? We go backwards. And then, normally in the final paragraph of any lesson in Likutey Moharan, the majority of the lessons, Rebbe Nachman summarizes the whole lesson, shows how it's hinted to in one verse, or one teaching from the sages, one ma'amar, one piece of chunk of information from the Torah, the written Torah or the oral Torah, any area, if it's the Zohar, the Midrash, the Gemara, in this case it's the Gemara, and to show how all the ideas are hinted to, plus he adds even sometimes new ideas that weren't mentioned earlier, but now he mentions them, and when you see it, you understand retroactively that this was really his intent and idea that he mentioned earlier. So now this lesson 24 is a series of lessons in Rebbe Nachman's Likutey Moharan, which deal with the interpretation of a very amazing Gemara in Masechet Bekhorot, page 8, dealing with the encounter between Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya and the wise men of Athens. Okay? The whole story, Rav Nosson explains this in the Likutey Halachot, Hilchot Shabbat Halacha Vav. He says the whole idea of the encounter, the challenges of Yehoshua ben Chananya with the wise men of Athens, and then subduing them, having them killed even, the whole idea was to show how every generation, the people who have atheistic ideologies, philosophical ideologies, which lead them to question simple, sincere, solid faith in Hashem, in the Torah, and the tzaddikim, it is a challenge we face in every generation. And their whole goal is to just show a person there's no need to connect to spiritual dimensions to live this life. It's enough to live a good life physically with all the enjoyments of the world. However, Rav Nosson quotes Rabbi Nachman in his book, Sichot Haran, Rabbi Nachman's Wisdom, that as anybody knows, this world in itself is just a dead end, because there's so many difficulties and sufferings that people go through in this life. Somebody who makes this world their goal, they can never be happy. Why? Because everything in this world has some difficulty, has some disappointment that lead people not to be happy about it. And if a person now has made his life exclusively connected to and this world as his goal, he will never ultimately be happy. He will try to do things, be happy. He'll pretend that he's happy and showing he's happy, but really he's not, because he doesn't know what to do and he's ashamed to express his disaccord and disappointment with his worldly goals and issues that he's having through. Okay? But the majority of people, they're not happy with this world. And because they deny the Hashem Chas Shalom, they deny spirituality as the means and the goal, it might be they're on the side, but it's not a big thing for them, and they brush it off, showing that they really don't care about spirituality and Hashem and emunah. So these people, when they have a difficulty, they have nowhere to turn to. So what do they turn to? They can turn to drugs, addictions, alcohol, suicide. They'll turn to other ways of trying to deal with the pain that they're going through, and the difficulty and the frustration. Whereas Rabbi Nachman teaches a person who has faith, chayav chayim tovim, person who lives his life based on simple emunah, that person can always be happy after every turbulence, after every wave and difficulty he goes through. He can get back up and start again. Why? Or he recognizes that what he's going through is just to cleanse him, to atone him for his sins, to cleanse him in this world so he has a bigger reward in the world to come. Or number two, that something amazing is waiting for him. What we say is Yerida letzorach aliyah, that the person is going through a descent in life for the sake of a major ascent already in this world. That Hashem has something amazing in store for you. Whatever it is, any suffering, even fatal suffering, it's just something amazing. It doesn't end there. It doesn't, okay, that's the end of the story, just suffering and that's it. No, it's for a higher means, a higher goal, B'ezrat Hashem. So now with the wise men of Athens, of all the heretical ideology that they have, they represent someone who sees themselves as trying to be ober chacham, to be over smart, and think they know, they can understand. And all the arguments, Rav Nosson and Rabbi Nachman together, they show all the arguments of the wise men of Athens is to challenge the validity, chas shalom, of spirituality. You know, God forbid to say this, but they challenge the validity of Judaism and how Rebbe Nachman probes into them. These are found, by the way, from lesson 23 of the Likutey Moharan up to lesson 32. Okay, this is the second lesson. 24 is the second of these lessons that Rebbe Nachman uses as the basis. One of the arguments found in the Gemara Masechet Bekhorot of the challenges between the wise men of Athens and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya, he was normally sent by the sages in the Holy Land to go all the way to Rome to redeem Jews who were taken captive as slaves or into jail, and they needed to be redeemed. And because he was very wise, the Roman emperor had a liking to him, because he saw that he knew how to talk, he understood his stuff, and he was impressed with him also. And because of that, the sages used Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya to find favor in the eyes of the emperor in order to do favors and do good for the Jewish people. By the way, according to Rav Chaim Vital and the Arizal, he is buried in Tzfat, in the cemetery, where the place mistakenly is mentioned as Hoshea ben Be'eri, which is below the Arizal's mikveh, if you've ever been there before. And really, Rav Chaim Vital writes that's the place of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya we're talking about. It could be they're both there, Hoshea ben Be'eri and Yehoshua ben Chananya, we don't know. But just the validity that he's there is based on what the Arizal writes. And Rav Chaim Vital says that the Arizal mentioned him. In any event, let us just see the actual text of the debate between Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya and the wise men of Athens. Okay, so this is the opening of the end of this lesson, the Likutey Moharan, paragraph 10. And what Rabbi Nachman is going to do, like we said earlier, he's going to show all the different parts of this lesson are hinted to in this dialogue, this argument between the wise men of Athens and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya. So the whole argument is like this. Now the following is what the wise men of Athens, the elders of Athens in Greece, Atuna is Athens in Greece, asked Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya. Because it's the whole story, Rav Nosson goes into the details of the story in Likutey Halachot, Shabbat, discourse number 6. But then again, you can see the whole discourse yourself in the Gemara itself in Bekhorot, page 8a. Okay? So they asked him like this, Emtsauta da alma hecha, where is the center of the universe? Zakfa etzba'ata, he raised his finger. What's interesting is when Rav Nosson brought this opening Gemara at the beginning of the lesson, he changed the wording here from a singular finger to etzba'ate, his fingers, connoting all the fingers, all 10 fingers, okay? That he raised his hands. This version of etzba'ate, his fingers, makes more sense of this lesson because Rabbi Nachman connects the fingers to the blessing of the Kohanim, which involves all 10 fingers of the Kohen. So, but here, on the other hand, when you want to emphasize something, you stick up one finger. Where is it? You don't go, here it is. You say, here it is, right over here. When you want to point to something, you don't point like this. You point like this. So, in one hand, etzba'ata makes sense to say singular finger, but then for Rebbe Nachman uses it, it makes more sense to say all 10 fingers like we're going to see. So it's a question mark here why Rebbe Nachman does that. It could be understood that this one finger, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya, his finger, he was so powerful that it's equivalent to his one finger to the 10 fingers which activate bracha in this lesson 24. That's how great Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya and his finger is, that one finger of his represents all the 10. We see this ability to transfer the energy of 10 fingers into one in our reciting of the Haggadah Shel Pesach. If you remember, it says that there was a dispute between the Tanaim, how many plagues were there in Egypt and how many on the sea. So then they compare one finger here and then there's 50 here. Okay, they say from 1 to 50, hit it to in one finger. So you have already this discussion of more being in one finger and Haggadah Shel Pesach. Take a look what we say on the night of Pesach and the Haggadah. Okay, and that discussion between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Akiva about how many makot were there in Egypt and how many makot were there on the sea. Okay, and they compare with the finger explanation there. You can take a look there. In any event, here he's saying that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya zakfa raised etzba'ata, his finger in the singular, Amar, and he said to the wise men of Athens, Hacha, here is the center of the universe. Amarule, so they said to him, they didn't ask him, they said to him. In other words, they're not asking, they're saying out of confidence. Mi emar, who says, it should read, they asked him who says, but it says, they said to him, because they're so confident, they're so haughty in their opinion, they don't have to ask. They just make a statement. In their opinion, that statement is considered enough because they know they're right. So they're saying, Mi emar, who says, they're saying a question. They're saying it, they're not asking it, because asking is normally out of humility. A person is asking because I don't understand, I don't know, I want to learn. They're not wanting to learn. They're saying, and they're saying what? A question. But they're saying the question as if to say, we know the answer, but we're saying to ask that you shouldn't be thinking about this question, not us. Who says that where you're pointing is the center of the universe? Amar Leu, and he also of confidence, said to them. He didn't answer, right? It doesn't say and he answered them, it says and he said to them, because each side, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya obviously out of humility because he knows the Torah, and Hashem is backing him, so he's able to save the confidence of the Torah. He himself has humility, he's batel to the Torah. The wise men of Athens are nullified to themselves, so they also say and we said. They don't say we asked, because it's coming from haughtiness. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya is saying with what's called azut dusha, brazenness of holiness, that he's relying on Hashem and the Torah and the tzaddikim, that this statement is correct, but he has humility. Amar Lehu, he said to them, Aitu ashle umoshchu, bring a cord, a rope, and measure, and you will see that I am correct, that this is the center of the universe. So Rabbi Nachman is going to explain this whole argument between them, based on this lesson 24. Of all the other commentaries on this amazing Gemara, because this Gemara really sticks out, this whole incident of the wise men of Athens, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya, there are major commentaries on this exchange, including from the Vilna Gaon, the Rav Yitzchak of Berdichev, the Maharal, the Maharsha, another book called Meital, and there's many other books, obviously, that we don't even know about that also discuss the secrets behind this argument, this challenge between the wise men of Athens and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya. The one that we want to use a little bit because it comes the closest to how Rebbe Nachman is going to explain it is that of the Maharal. The Maharal says like this, that they're challenging the validity of spirituality. They were saying, we're just going to say outside what the Maharal says, they, the wise men of Athens, were challenging that if now spirituality is of necessity, so therefore someone who combines his intellect with spirituality, and spirituality being connected to Hashem's infinite existence. So automatically, a person who's connected to that spirituality should also experience an infinite experience, and therefore there should be no level of knowledge beyond that person. And if there is, it's considered a chisaron. It's considered a lacking. So in other words, a person who doesn't know everything, that's called a lacking. And since man is meant to be complete as he is, we see that Hashem creates human being so complete. He has nails, he has fingers, he has hair, he has eyes, he has nose, he has a mouth. He's fully functionable. He can walk and talk and drink and eat, and the body does everything to settle. As long as a person obviously is maximizing his physical existence, he can live a perfect life, and there's no need for spirituality. Okay, and that itself shows that a man can reach perfection as it is, because everything is based on just the worldly terms. Okay, but once, according to their opinion, the wise men of Athens, you join spirituality in a person's existence, and that spirituality taps into Hashem's infinite existence. So then, if a person does have levels of wisdom that are beyond his reach, that's considered a chisaron, a lacking. Opposed to a person in this world, there's no levels that are beyond him. It's only that he has to learn more, and he'll get there. But there are levels in spirituality that there's a dead end no matter what in understanding them, based on spirit, if you have a spiritual existence connected, and therefore it's called a chisaron. And how could a person be considered, complete? He's lacking from the beginning. So what value it is to have a spiritual existence connected to your physical existence if it's always going to be lacking? So the Maharal answers outside again. He says, what's considered a deficiency? A man who cannot see? Yes, a man who cannot see, because a man is supposed to normally see, that's a deficiency. Do we say a man who doesn't have wings, oh, that's a deficiency, he should have wings? We don't say that. Why do we say that? Because it's not expected that a man has wings. Hashem created the human being, or mankind, if they want to call it whatever, doesn't need wings. He doesn't have wings. He doesn't need wings, okay? So he answered, the Maharal is explaining that Rebbe Chananya said, what's beyond my grasp, there's no need to call it a deficiency. Okay? If I don't have wings, it's not a deficiency. It's not my ball game. It's not my area. It's not at all shayach to me. It's not at all connected to me. That a person now who's supposed to see and doesn't see, that's a deficiency. That I understand, because he's supposed to see. But they say, oh, I don't have wings, so it's a deficiency. So that was his answer. He's saying, that's the beauty of spirituality. We recognize the areas that are beyond us, and because there's areas beyond us, even we have a spiritual existence, so I have no questions. It doesn't bother me, and it's not up to me to understand these areas which are beyond me. Like it says in the Mishnah and the Gemara, you're not allowed to, you're not allowed to probe what's beyond you, what's above, what's below, what's to the right, to the left. You're not allowed to go beyond. You're allowed to work only what's within your grasp. What's beyond, you must turn to emunah, okay? Rebbe Nachman says every Jew at every level has a what's beyond him and what's below him. And it changes. Based on a person's level of emunah, he's then allowed to internalize understanding of higher levels, but then he has a higher level of what's beyond him, what's below him, what's to the right, what's to the left. It's always changing to a person. He's not allowed to go past. He has to rely on emunah. You're not to ask questions about God, things which are beyond you. You just have to accept them in emunah. Once Hashem opens your mind to these ideas, then you're allowed to go into them. And even then, you still use emunah. That's why they allow you to access them, because they know you're such an emunah-based person. You're always going to turn to emunah no matter what. So they give you as a gift understanding, okay? But even such a person, where he does have levels which are totally beyond him, he's 100% emunah, not like partial. What's the domain of intellect is that there's a level that Hashem lets me understand, but I couple it with emunah. So it's always like 50-50. There's always a percentage of emunah in it, maybe even more. But I'm using a lot of emunah with the da'at that Hashem has given to me, and I choose to always still understand of emunah, and Hashem loves that. He loves people who always turn to faith and he gives them understanding. And even with the understanding, they refuse to go into the intellect all the way. They choose willingly, this is the tzaddikim, to go into the emunah mode. So Hashem loves those type of people, and he keeps on giving them more and more and more. That's how you have these people with great hasaga. It's like the famous story how the Vilna Gaon was always questioning and doubting and mocking, unfortunately, the Hasidic leaders. And he was told that Rav Zusha of Anapoli once answered a very difficult question, and the answer was found in the Yerushalmi. So the Vilna Gaon, when he found out, I hope I'm telling the story correct, or something like this to this end, that the Vilna Gaon, when he heard the answer of the Rav Zusha to somebody, he said that's amazing. That's what it says in Yerushalmi. But my question is, how does Rav Zusha know the Yerushalmi? He doesn't know Yerushalmi. He's like a simple guy. So when Rav Zusha heard what the Vilna Gaon said, he said, "Tell him I got it from the place that the Yerushalmi got it from." In other words, Hashem opened up my perception from where the Yerushalmi got it. That's where I get it from also. Because again, the rule is, yes, you're supposed to learn Torah. You're supposed to sharpen your intellect to the maximum. But even then, someone who always throws himself into emunah, Hashem loves that. This is like the greatest thing, and Rabbi Nachman enforces this. He says, as high as you go in intellect, you're always turning into emunah, b'ezrat Hashem. So going back to this Maharal's explanation, so he's answering Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya, with spirituality, there will always be levels beyond my understanding, and it's not considered a lacking, because I'm not expected to know what's beyond me. What Hashem allows me to understand, that I have full capacity and permission to understand. What's beyond me, it's not a blemish. You guys say it's a chisaron, and because it's a blemish, it can't be right, it can't be proper, because man is supposed to be complete. Like you see physically, he walks, the human being foot is designed to walk on the earth. Isn't that amazing? The hands are designed to pick fruit, to use this world. It's so perfect. It's so amazing how the human conditioning of the body, it's self-functioning. The body knows how to expel all the waste matter on its own, okay, to rejuvenate with sleeping, to regenerate the body. It's phenomenal. So I think that's complete. So then it's now something which is making complete incomplete. They can't be right. So he's saying it's not incomplete. It's not my job to understand that area of life. It's beyond me, and it's not my job. That's why he was explaining how the Maharal shows that they asked him, where's the center of the universe? You should be expected to know where's the center of the universe if you're so big. And he raised his finger as if to say, this is enough for me. Here is enough for me. In truth, what even the Maharal is saying, it fits in perfectly, because like they point out, wherever you measure from the world is considered the center. If I stick my finger up here, and then I measure across the entire globe, it comes back to here, being the center. And if I move over here, and I measure from here, or going around the globe, this will be the center also. So it fits in perfectly. But he was saying, based on the Maharal, that I'm sticking my finger up here, and he said, that's enough for me. On my perspective, it's enough. You're saying, where's the center of the universe? It's a big thing, and you can't grasp that, and it's considered a deficiency, and therefore cannot be true that you have to have spirituality in your life. And I answer, my spirituality is whatever is close to my reach. That's what Hashem expects me to do, and I'd be happy about that. So my finger is here. This for me is the center. It's enough to answer all the questions what's beyond me. Okay? And like they said, who says, that's not a proof? He says measure. Measure like we explained. Even this is enough of an answer, because this Hashem allows any point that I put to be my center of the universe, and it's enough. This is how the Maharal beautifully explains this dialogue between the wise men of Athens and Rabbi Yehoshua ben Chananya. And we're going to see, God willing, in the next class how Rebbe Nachman takes this a step further, and he's going to introduce new ideas that were not mentioned until now in the lesson, but were there all along. Just now he explains to us what this actually means and introduces new terms, and those new terms shockingly open up our eyes to see, wow, this is what he meant all along when he said A, B, C, D earlier. It's really this idea, and it's so pertaining into our life. We should be zoche, what already comes out from this class, is just to serve Hashem with emunah. Okay, Rabbi Nachman teaches, like we said earlier from Rabbi Nachman's wisdom, a Jew who lives with faith, his life is chayim tovim. Hu chay chayim tovim be'emet. A person who lives with emunah, he lives a good life, because whatever hits him in life, he takes it as part of the picture. or it's to cleanse me, to purify me from all my terrible things I did in the past, to cleanse me so I now have bigger reward in the world to come, or something big. It's and or something big is coming my way. Normally, it's both. It's both. It's to cleanse you, and also Hashem is preparing you for something unbelievable. You just have to have patience with emunah, and you'll get to it, Bezat Hashem. It's not easy. We go through such crazy things, and we even say bad things when we're going through what we're going through. We don't mean it, but we get tested, we get so squeezed, and we crash and break. Rebbe Nachman says, no matter what you've done, just get up, start again. That itself requires emunah. To do that, you need a modicum of emunah to believe that there's still hope for you, and you're part of the picture, and everything ultimately makes sense. Nothing is what did Hashem do to me? What's going on? I'm never going to make it, this and that. You're just patient, because in the end, Hashem will open the doors. Bezrat Hashem. And big rule, Rebbe Nachman says, never, ever, ever compare yourself to other people. You see another person, and you begin to say, I'm going to fall just like he did. In your eyes, the person, he died old, he died miserable. That's what's waiting for me also. Everybody goes through this. I'm getting old, I'm getting white, I'm getting cranky. Again, my favorite joke. Why do we call the spray WD-40? There's a spray for squeaks on the door. WD-40. Why? Because normally when you reach the age of 40, you begin to squeak. You get rusty. So you need to you gotta squeeze the spray on the rusty parts. And based on that, they should make for more money, WD-50 for age 50, WD-60 for age 60, etc. In any event, we're not supposed to look at other people. That's the biggest test. Look at you, look at him. You're on your way to that also. You're going to fall. And the hardest part is when people say that to you. Look at you, you're getting old. You're like this, and look what happened to you. And the main thing, Bezat Hashem, is to be alone. Like Rebbe Nachman teaches in the opening of Likutey Moharan part 2, Echad haya Avraham. Avraham was alone. You have to see yourself at times like it's just you and Hashem. Don't compare to other people, even though they also have a nose, they have a mouth, they have eyes, ears. They're just like you, flesh and blood. So I can compare. Yeah, you can compare for good things, but for negative things that are going to bring you down, it's forbidden to compare. In fact, the test is that you are comparing yourself to them. That's part of your test, whether you do that or not. You're all alone. You're a unique ball game. You're not like the other person. The davening you put in and the faith and the tzaddikim that you have, they don't have. So don't compare yourself to other people. Okay? It's a big thing. We should have poor miracles. To make known to the world that anybody who puts their trust in Hashem, they will not be put to shame forever. Those who just rely on Hashem. This is the biggest miracle of Purim. It's the salvation and the miracle for those who didn't give up and just kept on holding on, turning to Hashem. These people experience the Purim miracle more than anybody else. B'ezrat Hashem. All right, Chodesh Tov. We should have an amazing preparation for Purim. Shalom. Thank you for joining. And before we forget, if you have any questions or comments or whatever based on what we said in this class, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp. The number is +1. That's American number. 732-800-1863. Once again, +1 732-800-1863. Please only private message only. Thank you. Chodesh Tov. Have an amazing week.